Hello, everybody. It's George from Ireland. Well, welcome back to my channel. Amazingly, I shower occasionally. This video is about Rachel Reeves, Chancellor of the Exchequer. If you're not British, you may not realise that means finance minister. That's what every other country would call it, and the Treasury would be called the Ministry of Finance in almost every country besides the United States. So, Miss Reeves, she was appointed Chancellor on the 5th of July this year. So that was the day that the Labour was ushered into government. Keir Starmer was summoned to Buckingham Palace to kiss hands as informally be appointed Prime Minister and First Lord of the Treasury, and he appoints his own cabinet. Well, I mean, he advises the monarch. In practice, we know it's the Prime Minister appoints. So Rachel Reeves is the first female to hold that office, smash the last glass ceiling, as she would say. Methinks she is the only. It was the last cabinet position which had never been occupied by a woman. So, and she's a relatively young chancellor as well. So she seemed to have an ideal CV for it, as she was a mathematics whiz kid, chess champion. She read PPE, sorry, no, politics, economics, and yeah, politics, philosophy, politics, and economics at Oxford, at New College. She was lucky enough to be my contemporary, though unfortunately she wasn't lucky enough to meet me. And she went into the Bank of England straight after that. A few years later, she went to the London School of Economics and did a master's degree in economics. So she worked for HBOS in the retail sector, and she was offered a job at Goldman Sachs, but she declined. Well, that's what she claims anyway, saying that she could have had sacks of gold. Well, she wasn't droll enough to put it that way. So she was also involved in the Labour Party, and she stood in a no-hoper seat for Labour at the age of 26 or so. It's actually seemed to be very easy to be selected as a Labour candidate very young. And then she was elected to represent Leeds West. But there's been a hoo-ha in the media about her over the past few days about her lying on her CV. And why has she changed this published CV that was out there for a long time? So she clearly exaggerated her economic and banking experience, and her experience is not as strong as one might think. So the Conservatives have run with this. The Tory graph, that is, some would say the House Journal of the Conservative Unionist Party, has been making hay with this one. So she worked at Halifax Bank of Scotland, HBOS as is commonly known. And so she said she was there as an economist. Now it says she worked in retail banking. Why on earth would she change something that she did like something like 20 years ago? And she's on record as saying this in various newspapers. Indeed, she told the Independent newspaper way back in 2011 she worked in the retail division. Now, which is it? I don't know the intricacies of banking, but why can't she get her story straight about this and other things? So, yes, there she is, a liar. I know most politicians of all parties are professional liars, but Rachel Reeves is perhaps worse than most, especially her lies about the budget, about the 40 billion black hole that she had no idea, despite all the public accounts being just that, public, and shared with all the opposition parties, despite the opposition parties have access to the civil service. There's this Office for Budget Responsibility, which would have told her everything, and she often cited OBR figures, the Office for National Statistics, and on and on. So on the Labour Party's own website, it says the following: Rachel spent her professional career as an economist for the Bank of England, the British Embassy in Washington, and the Halifax Bank of Scotland. Okay, so others say, well, that's really not true. So that she's not a real economist. Okay, I mean, she obviously has studied economics to a high level, but yeah, that qualifications can be overrated, because you look at who was it, um, Dr. Kwasi Kwarteng, seemingly the most highly educated and intellectual chancellor the United Kingdom's ever had, and he was cataclysmic. He held that office for about 32 days. And how on earth did he go for this madcap economic scheme to slash taxes and borrow more, and this was going to pay for growth and whatever? I mean, I've never studied economics, probably shows, but even to me, that seemed just too good to be true, just impossible. That's why I didn't want Liz Truss to be prime minister. I went for Rishi Sunak, and I like to play counterfactuals. Counterfactuals. What if Sunak had won that August 2022 ballot amongst the Conservative Party? He'd been leader from the time Boris had to step down. When was it? Sort of 6th of January 2022, 2 days before the Queen died. So there would have been none of this a kamikaze quasi budget. There wouldn't be that fiscal event. The United Kingdom would not be sort of tens of billions of pounds worse off. The markets wouldn't have spooked. The whatever the pound would have lost so much value, and so on. It wouldn't have played havoc with pension funds. The Conservative ratings would be much higher, and they wouldn't have not had to unceremoniously eject Liz Truss. Sunak would have had a clear run at that 2024 election, would still have lost, but more narrowly, could scarce have lost more than they did. And the Tories, rather than having 122 seats, might have something like 200. So I think leader of a rather healthier opposition. Methinks he probably would have bowed out at that point. The Lib Dems obviously wouldn't have done so well. The Greens would have lost one of their seats. Maybe Reform would not have got so many seats. Maybe none. So we'd be in a fairly different place had there not been that disastrous decision to elect Mary Elizabeth Truss, or Mrs. O'Leary, as leader of the Conservative Party and therefore Prime Minister. So Rachel Reeves is a woman of vaulting ambition. She's made no secret of her desire to be Prime Minister. Another point, her sister Ellie Reeves is also a Labour MP. Wasn't she chairwoman of the Labour Party? I think she is now, actually. So she's also serves in the cabinet. And I think they're the only two sisters in Parliament at the moment, and indeed the only two siblings. I mean, there have been the brothers Miliband in the past, the sisters Eagle. I can't think who else. So yeah, there's this controversy about did she lie? Well, obviously she certainly did lie about what she was doing. Retail banking is not the same as being an economist, is it? Why did she lie? She was burnishing her credentials, and that's significant. A small lie often hides bigger ones. So surely her reputation for honesty can be impugned now. So we can't believe what she says in anything. I mean, lying on your CV is a sackable offence, isn't it? And this was a CV to be Chancellor of the Exchequer. And then there's that legislation as publishing misinformation is criminalised in the United Kingdom. Staggering. So why should she not be prosecuted for what she said? Now, the Conservatives are trying to start a hair over this one. Of course, the public don't really want to know. They're just bored of politics, particularly of the Conservative and Unionist Party. So I think her job is safe, though she's been fairly dreadful. You know, taking away this winter fuel allowance. Admittedly, it's from the wealthier pensioners, but some people will have Alzheimer's, will not be able to say, no, I need an exemption because I have a relatively low income. Some people are too proud, just won't get round to it. And this increase in the basic state pension doesn't kick in until April. That's the beginning of the next fiscal year. That's not going to get them through the winter. So she's really penalising elderly people for being mostly Conservative voters. So I do agree with the inheritance tax rise, because why should I inherit anything? If I inherit lots of money, lovely for me, but I didn't earn a penny of that. And what about those who inherit nothing? We have to fund public services. The money's got to come from somewhere. The national insurance rise, which is a tax on jobs, makes it more expensive to employ people. Now, she could tax billionaires more. She could tax millionaires more. She could increase VAT on luxuries like gold and diamonds and things like that, increasing tax on air travel. I mean, I agree with that if because that is something which is entirely avoidable. And yes, it is pleasant to go on holiday, but it would not make the difference to almost anyone. And if you and going on holiday is not a right, you've obviously got a bit of disposable income if you do that. Furthermore, it's bad for the environment, and there are lots more things she could tax more. I mean, cigarettes even more than they are at the moment. Increase stamp duty. I can't think what else. You know, if you inherit something over 7 years before the parents die, or the what was I saw the donors die. The testators die. Then the heir doesn't have to pay a brass farthing in income tax, sorry, in inheritance tax. So we could extend that to 10 years or something like that. There's a lot of other things she could have done without hammering so many people. So she's really wrecked her reputation. She's bitterly unpopular already, and it's not a terrible legacy she inherited, as in it was a growing economy, very low unemployment, low inflation. The basics were healthy, finally. Ironically, the Tories lost office just as they finally got it right. Right, so that is Rachel Reeves, liar extraordinaire, but what would you expect? Right, thank you so much for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, donate to PayPal. Goodbye.